Hello and welcome into episode 4 of the Stomp the Bus podcast. This is Mark Harris. I am with my clean-shaven co-host, Colton Dodgson. How's it going, man?
Yes, it's good. I feel so much lighter. What was I going to say? Oh, my background. I had a really good one for today, and we're using a new revolutionary recording software, and I couldn't use it. But I'm sure I'll set the stage for you with a little bit of imagery. I'm sure everybody remembers USC's trip to Tempe in 2014. And the controversy that came out after that game because of a certain coach's state of mind, and ASU still lost. So that
was 2015. I think that was 2015. 2015.
Oh, wait, no, that was our freshman year.
No. Our freshman year was the Jail Mary.
Right. And you're right. It was 2015. I stand corrected. So
when
that's where I was going.
Sark-led USC Trojans kicked the crap out of ASU despite a name drop.
It was a picture of Sark, and he was vertical with another one of his players, and the Inferno was in the background, and all of the students were just like this. And the information that came out later about Sark was just salt in the wound.
That was tough. Because
Todd Graham lost to a coach who wasn't necessarily sober on the sidelines. So Todd Graham and the boys, yeah.
In fairness, a lot of people don't come into Sun Devil Stadium sober. So that's Sark fair. Was just enjoying it like a local.
Yeah, I love how you go into the stadium and it says "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," and it's like, I don't know. Everybody who comes in should have a pretty optimistic outlook. Their odds are pretty good. I don't know why they need to abandon hope, but
oh man. Well, we're off to a good start.
Yeah.
Optimistic views for ASU right now. No. We're actually going to start with something that happened outside of ASU just to kind of get it out of the way. But on Tuesday, Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren, who's actually from Phoenix, or the Phoenix area, and went to ASU. He went to ASU and GCU, so Valley native. Yeah. Anyway, he talked about a lot of stuff at Big Ten Media Days on Tuesday. And the general theme of his remarks were the Big Ten is going to continue to be aggressive. He mentioned trying to be like a disruptor in the industry. So that's great. And the day that happened on Tuesday, Brett McMurphy of the Action Network reported that a source told him that Notre Dame, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal, Miami, and Florida State are being considered as potential members to the Big Ten. Kevin Warren didn't come out and say that. It was sources told the Action Network that. So we all know Notre Dame. The Big Ten wants Notre Dame. Basically, once Notre Dame makes a decision, that's kind of where, if they say yes, they want to go to the Big Ten, that's kind of what they're waiting on. But I think it was interesting that Kevin Warren basically isn't like playing nice right now, or at least publicly not. And how that relates to ASU is, I think there's been a lot of like recent reporting in the past few weeks post the initial news that like, oh, the Big Ten's done adding. Oregon and Washington would have been added already if the Big Ten wanted them. They just would have come along with the LA schools. But if you're ASU leadership, if you're Michael Crow, if you're Ray Anderson, you can make all the statements you want about staying loyal to the Pac-12. And personally, I kind of hope that that's what happens. I hope that the Pac-12 stays together for the next, I don't know, decade or so, and then who knows what happens. But regardless, you need to listen to those Kevin Warren comments and just make sure you have a Big 12 contact on speed dial, ready to call right away the instant potentially the tweet comes across my timeline of Oregon, Stanford, Notre Dame, and Washington are going to the Big Ten, like no being high and mighty above the Big 12. I get that all the schools maybe don't necessarily align with President Crow's views, particularly BYU and Baylor. But sorry, like it's an athletic conference, and going to the Big 12 personally, like isn't like the best ideal situation, but it's also a lot worse than getting left behind in whatever the Pac-12 would be without Oregon and Washington, you know?
Right, and it looks here that it looks based on. Sorry, my face got really big. I don't know why the thing adjusted. But regardless,
More of your beautiful face to see.
yeah, whatever you say, Mark. It looks like obviously they're trying to. The Big Ten, at least, is trying to sort of get every school from the Big 12 from that whole West Coast. And they're
Well,
talking about
that's what's being like publicly said. I mean, who knows what will actually happen, but yeah.
yeah. So you got Stanford, Cal, Washington, Oregon. That would knock out the rest of those, except for Oregon State, I guess. The rest of those West Coast schools. So, and then something else that stood out was that literally every Power Five conference school not in the SEC has reached out to the Big Ten. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the same old story, like different day. This is going to go on for a while. I thought that we were kind of like on the other side, like what had happened, what was going to happen has already happened, and I think I'm wrong. I think there could be
We'll see.
news from now until whenever. I would not be shocked whenever news may come out about any of this. Yeah,
Right.
right here regarding expansion, I get asked every single day, what's next? So it's an ongoing process, and we just kind of need to keep our eyes out. And I don't need to be on Twitter because Mark sends me everything of note anyway.
That's right.
So I don't really need. I Mark is basically my push notification. So when I get that message from Mark, I'll know that something happened. So I'll just keep an eye out for that, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, in the story on the Action Network, there's a quote said, quote, "It could be 2 months or 2 years," another source said. There could be an odd number and there could be not any specific number of teams. So it's just so vague. And basically, like, for me, like, maybe this is just posturing and they're just waiting for Notre Dame to make a decision type of deal. But you can't just 100% know that. And so, like I said, if you're ASU, you have to have a contingency plan. And really, the only contingency plan is the Big 12, unless somehow the SEC wants you because of the Phoenix market. And maybe that's possible a few years down the road, but not right now. And a few other things that stood out to me is we've heard Notre Dame, Oregon, Washington, and then Stanford just because of their connection with Notre Dame and just the Stanford institution being so unique. I swear to God, if Cal gets in the Big Ten and ASU doesn't, I'm going to be pissed. Like, Cal, I get it that they're a better academic institution than ASU. I'm not denying that, but their fans don't care. Like, we say ASU fans are on the side of not caring, but Cal, it's a whole nother level. And
Yeah, I don't think ASU fans don't care. I just think a lot of time their passion is very misdirected or
leading, yeah.
yeah, it almost comes off as like, are you aware of what's happening? They're just like blindly loyal, I feel like, in a lot of
Well,
cases.
some are and some aren't, but and we're gonna get to that later. But yeah, that's true. And then the other thing that stood out is if I'm a Clemson fan and I'm reading this article that says that no, Big Ten's considering Miami and Florida State, I would be pissed too. Like, what the heck, you know? Uh,
That's the bulk of the ACC right there.
yeah. So that's just something to keep an eye on. It may not even amount to anything, but I I just I just hope that the ASU leadership does not just completely rule out the Big 12 because it's
Right.
not the
And
preferred
but
destination.
what I just saw this where it says if the Pac-12 were no longer a power league, so if this happens where the Big Ten takes, Cal, Stanford, Oregon, Washington, and then the Big 12 swoops in and takes the four that are mentioned, U of A, ASU, all those schools. Uh, could the Rose Bowl actually still be an auto bid for the Pac-12? They're saying it might pivot to a Big 10, Big 12 matchup.
Yeah. I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I mean, it's going to be insane there's going to be so much going on over the next couple of years. So
Yeah, because all the TV contracts have to be finalized. You have Pac-12 is, talking about its media contract, and the Big 12 has theirs like the year after. It's gonna be there's gonna be a lot of churn these next few years.
I just want the
Anyways,
playoff expanded. That's all I care about. Once that happens, I'll be like, all right, some good news.
I think that will happen. I think that's almost certainly going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, we have Pac-12 Media Day tomorrow, which should be very interesting. A few little housekeeping notes. ASU had 3 players make the first and second all-conference team. Only 1 player on the first team. That would be DJ Taylor as a first-team return specialist. And
Wait,
then
Mark, you buried the lead. You didn't tell them that Stomp the Bus is credentialed, and we'll be doing a live show from Pac-12 Media Day tomorrow.
Yeah. Except we won't be, unfortunately.
What? You told me our application was approved. You're such a liar. This is why I don't want to work with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, anyway,
wait.
we'll just have to react to Pac-12 Media Day and not actually be there. But
yeah, we're men of the people. We're finding out just like everybody else.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, DJ Taylor makes it as a first team return specialist. That makes sense. He's a very explosive returner. If Sun Devil fans remember, he was the guy who opened the 70-7 win with a return. So he's definitely a good choice for that. And then they have 2 guys on the second team. Ladarius Henderson is a second team O lineman, and then Merlin Robertson as a second team linebacker, and then 2 honorable mention guys, Kyle Soeli and Xavier Valde. So I could see Valde being on one of the postseason all conference teams. We'll have to see about that, but a few guys there, and most of the people selected, I'm looking at a list right now. It's a lot of USC and Utah, which makes a lot of sense. So those figure to be 2 of the best teams in the league. There's some Oregon guys mixed in there, more Oregon States than in past years, and that kind of shows the strength of that program getting better. So yeah, and then where was ASU picked to finish? I thought that we would see this information after the media day, but it came out today. Colton, I'm going to let you guess. Where out of 1 to 12, where do you think ASU was picked to finish this season?
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say 10.
Did you read it?
I had it pulled up. I didn't know you were doing your thing. So
yeah, 10. Yeah, they're number 10. No surprise there for Colton, I guess. But yeah, so ASU picked to be number 10 in the conference. Honestly, like from the outside perspective, that feels right. I don't know if they will actually finish 10th in the conference, but kind of just how they're being talked about, they ahead of Arizona and below Cal. It's not surprising. It may not finish that way. We'll see. And then they had Utah as number 1, got 26 first place votes. So a lot of the USC hype is kind of coming from, I guess, the media members who weren't voting in this poll, because they had USC actually 3rd behind Oregon. So does anything really stand out to you among the Pac-12 football preseason media poll?
Yeah, just sort of the shifts by the perennial bottom dwellers that, you're used to seeing at the bottom of these polls, like Oregon State, Cal. Years past, even Stanford has been near the bottom. So seeing them start to climb a little bit, it's kind of a reminder of the trajectory that ASU is on.
Right.
While other schools are starting to build and improve, and you're seeing these programs. Oregon State at 5 is extremely impressive.
Yeah.
seeing
It
these
is.
schools start to climb a little bit, and ASU is moving in the opposite direction. So that really stood out to me. Obviously, still ahead of U of A, but based on like reports and everything that I've been reading about both of these programs, I wouldn't have been shocked to see those two flip. It seems
Yeah,
like
I
they're on
wouldn't have been
opposite.
either.
It seems like they're on opposite trajectories.
Yeah.
But and then Colorado at the very bottom. That's a fall from grace for them. Obviously, Mel Tucker leaving a couple years ago has sort of culminated in this.
Yeah.
But they were another team that was near the top for quite a while and
Well, I mean, they
contending.
had like one good year. Like I don't know.
But
Colorado.
they were kind of in that like Wazoo mold a little bit, where they were always going to be competitive. Like playing Colorado is never like playing Oregon State, you know. So seeing those shifts a little bit are with I guess some of the perennial. So like Colorado is more of like a perennial middle tier team, and now having them at the very bottom is interesting.
Right. Yeah, I agree with kind of that point.
Yeah, but
they've
seeing
been
Oregon, the climbs and the falls is what really stood out.
right. Yeah, Colorado's been hit bad by the transfer portal this year too. So, and ASU when they played last year, ASU didn't really even like. They pretty much just ran the ball the whole time and killed them. So.
Yeah,
They didn't really.
Colorado. Here's a little anecdote. Those are encouraged on podcasts, right?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. So I went to that ASU Colorado game
Last year.
and yeah, everybody has a betting story now, right? Because it's legal, so that's everybody's new hobby. And it's I refer to it as more of a vice. Very seldom do I have fun doing it because of things like I'm about to describe. So like you said, it was just a run fest. Not a whole lot of points in the early going, I guess. So I checked the live total, and I'm pretty sure I had it at I think it was 33.5.
Okay.
I think they scored about maybe I think it was like 13 to 17 points at half. And I was like, all right, let's do it. You know, buckle up. We're in the nosebleeds anyway. Let's make this interesting. And the game was pretty like secure for ASU, and Colorado was doing the patented drive for pride, where no points that they score are going to influence the outcome of the game, but they still are trying to score. It's kind of like the Tom Thibodeau thing. If you ever watched a Knicks game, they are going to play.
I don't watch a lot of Knicks games.
Yeah, I strictly
not a big fan of seeing Julius Randle take contested long twos.
Right, but it's the classic like you play to the whistle sort of mentality.
Right.
So Colorado, I think I had 2.5 points to spare. So if Colorado kicked the field goal, it goes over, right? And Colorado lines up with like a minute left in the game. I think they're down by like 14 or something.
So okay.
Maybe 17. This math isn't adding up. I'm aware of that. I don't remember.
I have the box score on my phone.
Okay. You help me out here.
Okay.
So this will assist.
At 8:30 in the fourth quarter, Jaden Daniels 15-yard run. ASU goes up 35-10. So the game's over.
Right. Okay. So I didn't have 33.5. I had it at like 40. It would have been 47.5 then.
Whatever the under was, though, that's what you had.
Right. I had under 47.5. Yes.
Okay. And then what happened?
So Colorado gets the ball and they go on this this patented drive for pride.
Right.
That all the hardo coaches in sports pride themselves on. You play to the whistle, that sort of thing. And again, 35-10. Nothing you do will influence the outcome of this game. How much time was left when they kicked the field goal, Mark?
3 minutes and 54 seconds.
Yeah, 3 minutes, 54 seconds left in this game. Colorado lines up and kicks a field goal. The details of that story were a little fuzzy to me, so it was I feel like I could cut down on the time, but that's why I have sort of.
Are you in Steve Sarkisian mode?
Yeah, a little bit. No, that was the earlier days of this show. But
Right.
that's why I'm kind of pleased to see Colorado near the bottom because of what they did to me last year and that crushing loss. But people will come here to hear about my gambling defeats.
Your gambling vices, yeah. It was 4th and 5 at the ASU 15, 33
Yeah,
field goal.
they
Oh
kick a
my
field
God.
goal. They don't. That's what happened. Is I'm like, if you're trying to win the game, kick the
Yeah,
field or go for the touch. Like, go for it,
right.
right? And they line up to kick the field goal and just took the points.
Well, also, like, from a team perspective, like, what's the difference between losing 35-10 and losing 35-13? Like, there's
It
no.
made absolutely zero sense.
I know.
Like, there was
I know.
no rationale other than points are better than no points that made sense in that scenario for
Yeah.
Colorado to go for it.
The only time I understand that is when you're getting shut out and you kick the field goal, you're down like 20-0 with like 2 minutes left in the game. You kick the field goal just to say you didn't get shut out. That's the only time that's acceptable.
Is that like a gentle what's the word I'm looking for? Like courtesy thing to, like, you know how you would take a knee or whatever? Is that kind of
Right.
Colorado saying, like, we don't want to hurt any defensive starters
No,
or
no,
anything
I don't
like
think
that?
so
Yeah,
because they were down. Like if you're down at any point in the game, like it's fine to just keep going, like so.
right. But that's what I'm saying. Are they like, it's so out of hand that we're just going to kick the field goal here and not risk any
I don't
sort of injury?
I don't know. I don't really see how. I think probably what they just wanted to get some points because they didn't trust their offense to get a touchdown there. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
I don't
know.
know, but that was brutal, and I
Yeah.
forgot the details that you kind of just tapped into, like, some PTSD for me because it's all flooding back.
No, you've told me about this story before. So once you said
Yeah,
Colorado, I was like, oh, I can look this game up. So
yeah, no,
uh
it was crushing.
anyway, speaking of crushing, George Kliavkoff has to give a public address tomorrow at the Pac-12 Media Day. I'm going to be interested to see his tone, if he says anything particularly noteworthy. Does he take the high road in terms of USC and UCLA? How does he address the other commissioners? Kevin Warren is basically saying Big Ten might still be open for business. Brett Yormark at the Big 12 literally said the Big 12 is open for business, implying that, hey, we want the Arizona schools, Utah, and Colorado. I just think it's going to be interesting to see if Kliavkoff, do they have any like concrete news about a TV deal or something with the ACC or whatever? I will be very interested to see what he says. My gut tells me that he'll probably just try to get through it and not say anything particularly stupid and just move on because in the end, like it's good to put up a good strong front, but ultimately it's just a press conference, So
Right, and I mean, we talked about this with the Ray Anderson news last week. I don't expect anything groundbreaking or any huge news to come out. All of that stuff usually leaks anyway.
right,
So I don't know. I'm sure he's just going to go up and talk about how strong the Pac-12 is and uh,
right.
wish USC and UCLA, which is weird because they're still in the conference for 2 years. So it's like, I don't know. But
If I were
yeah, I
him,
don't.
oh, if
No,
I
I
were him,
was
I
just,
would
I was
say
done.
I would keep it cool, but I would also just kind of throw in there like, yeah, if USC wasn't being mediocre this past decade, we might not be in this position. Because USC's ineptitude, keeping Clay Helton for so long and having the issues that came before it and hiring terrible athletic directors, where does that sound familiar? Kind of
Ooh,
kept
zing.
the, yeah,
Mark is
kind of kept
spicy
the,
today.
yeah, kind of kept the conference down. So it'll interest. I bet some of the I mean, I feel sorry for some of these coaches and players, like especially the salty coaches. They're just going to be asked about realignment all day, and they have the coaches have no control over it.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
not really a coach question.
yeah, but at the same time, you still have to ask it. And then I
Yeah,
saw, yeah,
yeah. I guess you do. I guess you could approach it more from the angle of, like, I don't know, I don't even know how you would ask a coach that question. More from the angle of, like, how do you feel about the teams that you might have to be not playing anymore in a conference.
Right.
Yeah, just from like the coaching perspective. But I don't know. It seems like, what do you think of realignment? Is like,
Yeah.
which
No,
is somebody's gonna hit them with a talk about realignment.
Talk about. Oh boy. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see if anything comes out of that. And then yeah, so the two ASU players who got sent to Pac-12 media are Ladarius Henderson, who we mentioned, and then also Kyle Soelle. And both of these guys, they've been with the program for a while, specifically Soelle. He's been there. I think he was on the team on the 2017 team as like a redshirt freshman. Like he's been on the team for a long time because I vaguely remember covering him being on the team, but maybe he started in 2018. But either way, these are basically the two like leaders of the team. Soelle being the defense, Henderson being the offense, and those two, along with a few other players, spoke with Doug Haller of The Athletic, who basically wrote a story on Monday after ASU's personal media day, kind of just asking the players what they thought of this, what they thought of the season going into the year, in light of all the negative attention that's come to ASU this offseason. And they were very confident. They were very confident in their team this season. Henderson particularly, he made a lot of references to like, yeah, some of these guys transferred out, but we're not going to miss all of them, you know, and also saying that we brought in some guys in. I just thought I get that the players are going to put up a united front and say like, oh, like, you know, we think we're going to win and this and that, but it felt a little more defiant, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't look like Soelle was one of the players that they interviewed. Henderson is definitely in here.
Oh, was Soelle not in there? Oh,
No, it's Jordan Clark, Ben Scott, Case Hatch, Ladarius
Marcus
Henderson,
Davis, Michael Matus.
yeah,
Okay.
Marcus Davis and Michael Matus. Or Matus?
It's Matus. Oh, you know why? Okay, because I saw. Okay, so Willie was interviewed also that same day, and he made a comment about no team that I'm on is going to win 5 games or less. So basically saying,
Okay.
but
So
it wasn't part of this
similarity.
story. But it echoes the same theme.
Yeah, no, the point remains, Harris. Don't worry.
Yeah. But did you see any particular quotes in there?
I mean, it's. I kind of liked what Henderson said here when Doug asked, after a great spring, several players transferred for personal and NIL reasons. What was that time like, and how did you respond? And Henderson said, it's like, okay, football is what? First downs, third
Yep.
downs, and touchdowns. Can we still get those without some of these guys? Most definitely. This train doesn't stop moving. We know what held us back last year. If we can get away from those things, a few guys don't matter. So that one really jumped out, and it's I loved the sort of simplification of it all, because it's like, oh, who's going to finish here, who's going to do what this year, we're projecting 7 wins, and it's like, at the end of the day, football is exactly what he just described. It's
Right.
first downs, third downs, and touchdowns. So
Right.
I really enjoyed that simplification there, and trying to sort of shut out that outside noise. But yeah, that sentiment of confidence is something you see where it's just like I love it. I love my teammates. I love my coaches. I love being a Sun Devil, all of these things, you know, and our backs are against the wall. That's how we like it. Will we still be underdogs in week 7, week 8? So that overarching theme of like, we're feeling good regardless of how everybody else is feeling is definitely consistent throughout.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they have to believe that. They're the players. They can't say, oh, you know, we might win a couple games this year. You
But
know,
it seems like they're going extra. They're not only saying like, oh, we're gonna beat expectations. Like they're gonna
right.
say like we're gonna beat expectations by more than people think that we can,
Which is very well possible. Like,
Yeah.
who knows what could happen? They very well could. I think that if I'm a player on a team like this and I see this mass exodus of people leaving and all of the stuff that's happening around this program, it's going to be like, I would feel like, okay, so nobody's acknowledging the talent that we still have here. It's
Right.
just USC is Lincoln Riley and I don't know why his name's escaping me. Oklahoma, Caleb Williams, all these guys. Big Ten, who's leaving the Pac-12 now? Like so much stuff beyond just the product on the field is
Yeah.
going on. So if I'm a player on that team, I'm thinking like you still have to play these games.
Right.
And this is something
Right.
we've done our entire lives. We know how to play the sport, and I think that's what Ladarius Henderson was saying in that quote is like first downs, third downs, and touchdowns, and it's all it boils down to. So I don't know. I like it. I definitely do, and I agree with what you're saying. It feels like it's something they genuinely believe. But I see on our little sheet here, we were going to discuss the mass tweet that came out, and that kind of ties in with this point as well.
I wanted to get to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say to kind of segue into that. A lot of this from that tweet and these player comments, it feels like the players are really leading the charge in
Right.
sort of stealing back this narrative of a down season and trying to look for these NIL opportunities in this sort of unprecedented landscape. It's like where you don't hear too much from, at least I haven't seen too much from coaches or guys trying to deflect from these players and not make them take the brunt of all that's happening. And it seems like they're speaking up for themselves, which is it's kind of refreshing in college football where for so long these guys didn't really have a voice. They were student athletes, and that was kind of
Right.
it. I remember trying to interview some of these guys when we covered the team, and you had to have like special clearance just to talk to them. And
in the
it's
Graham
insane.
era, yeah,
it's insane. So it's really cool. And obviously, I haven't got to.
It does
cover
depend on the
under,
coach.
Yeah, I haven't got to cover the
so
team under Herm Edwards, so it might be a little more.
no,
access might not be as bad, but
from a media perspective, like he's been more open with the local media letting them in and stuff.
Okay, well that's good.
So
I
that's
like
part
that.
of it. But yeah,
He's a media guy himself. Hopefully
yeah,
he understands a little bit. So, but that's
maybe
just what I was going to say. It's refreshing to see the players leading the charge. I don't think when it comes to NIL they should have to, and I know we're going to get to that. I think NIL you should have, spoiler alert, a collective to possibly help you with this stuff. But that's a very long-winded way of saying this new shift in the players leading the charge is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, totally. A lot of good stuff in this article. If you can read it on The Athletic, there was a question about, did you get opportunities to transfer? And a lot of them said, yeah, of course. So that's one thing that isn't getting talked about is we always notice just the people who do transfer out, but there's not naturally, of course, there's not going to be as much news about the people who stay because that's not as interesting. There's not a transaction. And
that kind of speaks volumes too, trying to stick around when it's not like, I guess from the outside looking in, you're probably not going to be contending for a Pac-12 title this year,
right.
At least from our perspective. So making that decision to want to stay after everything that happened speaks volumes too.
And there were a few quotes in there that were along the lines of, we can be better this year than we were last year. And that would mean going 9-3 instead of going 8-4, which if that happens, that would be crazy. I don't think that's going to happen, but you can tell there's a real us against the world mentality in that locker room. And again, I'm not trying to sound sappy, but that stuff matters, especially in football, and even especially if they have a few losses early, that it's kind of that stuff that can keep a team together when bad things are happening. So we'll see how that plays out. I do wonder I do wonder how the fan base reacts if they just beat, like if somehow they beat Oklahoma State week 2. I think that might change some people's perspectives, but we'll have to see about that. I just thought it was an interesting article, and it's tough. I just feel bad for some of these players because it's just been such a tough offseason. I mean, maybe not from the outside looking in, obviously. You have guys leave. I mean, if you're one of the players on the team and Jaden Daniels puts out that video, was in December of 21 after the season saying, "Hey, I'm staying," and then a month later he transfers out, like that's got to
that
be
was confusing.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense. Why put out that video?
Well, and here's the thing. Like, had Jaden Daniels just transferred right after the season, like a bunch of other guys did, then ASU would have had more options in the transfer quarterback market, and there was a lot of the reporting that Spencer Rattler just would have gone to ASU. So I'm glad we have Emory Jones. I'm not like saying, oh, I'd rather have Spencer Rattler than Emory Jones. I think the average ASU fan probably would, just because he's so much more recognizable than Emory Jones. And he's from Phoenix. But that's just an interesting little twist in the transfer saga that has affected ASU. So whatever you think about how the players are, the outside noise, like at least at this point, the players seem to be pretty confident. It'll be interesting to see what Henderson and Soeli say tomorrow at Pac-12 Media Day.
You kind of said it too. Is like that effect on a football team can't really be understated. You know, like guys aren't going to be making business decisions. I don't think guys are going to be playing all out, and they're going to, just for the guys around them, you know, you're going to have that bond of having to go through all of this stuff together. Yeah. And I don't really
think to prove people wrong.
Yeah, I don't think that can be overstated. I think you hit the nail on the head with that, especially with a game like football where, you know, guys are putting their bodies on the line. It's like when you're looking at somebody do that, how can you not also do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. I think that mentality is going to spread. And at the very least, that mentality might be very different from where it was last year. You know what I mean? There could be a big progression in that regard. So,
right. Yeah. They were saying, you could tell the team chemistry wasn't like totally up to snuff last year. And that could have.
And even with those like mental errors, like all the false starts in the BYU game and not, you know.
And the other games.
Yeah. The false starts in every game and all of the stupid penalties and everything that happened. Like when you are, it was just a lack of focus, I feel like, and sort of, disconnected, disjointed, not focused on what's happening. And I think when you are galvanized and you're ready to go and you're locked in, that happens more like that's more rare. That doesn't happen as often as it did. And hopefully that's the case. Maybe we'll see some of that. But who knows? Hopefully it's much less. We see it much less than we did last year. But
right. Yep. And then another thing that kind of rose up, this was also on Monday. I don't know how many ASU players tweeted out, but it was probably at least like 20, probably more, maybe even like 20 or 30. They tweeted out a graphic that showed a Sun Devil American flag with the caption, "Sun Devil Nation, we need you. We, the members of the Arizona State football team, wish to better connect with you and local businesses through NIL opportunities. With such a vast student body and alumni base, the possibilities for what we can accomplish together is endless. Let's take action, strengthen our program and our Sun Devil community together." So this obviously caught the attention of a lot of people. It as a fan, it's kind of embarrassing that there hasn't been it just seems like the players are on their own when it comes to NIL, and there's no like facilitation from the school, you know? And I know that it's technically the rules. The schools aren't supposed to facilitate NIL deals, but screw that. Like, come on, the rule book has been thrown out the window. Like, let's get these guys some money. And many of them have gotten money. Daniel Ngata is with the Burrito Express. I saw Henderson and Soeli were getting NIL deals from like a local bicycle shop. And then obviously Emory Jones transferred here, got I think it was, I don't know how much it was, like $75,000, like a car. And it was a pretty good deal, but
Who's with
it's
Burrito
not
Express?
widespread, you know?
Who's with
What?
Burrito Express?
Daniel Ngata.
Oh, nice. That's my
Yeah.
favorite one so far.
Yeah. And I think there's a few more. I think Case Hatch, I think he actually got like an NIL thing with like the WWE as like a thing that the WWE was doing um as like, yeah, it's a next in line thing, and they chose like 15 athletes from around the country, and they weren't all football. So good for Case Hatch doing that.
Yeah.
But hopefully these players raise attention and more of them get opportunities. Obviously, the better players are going to get more opportunities than the ones who are sitting on the bench. I mean, that's just kind of how it works. And uh, but there's opportunities for other players to make NIL deals too if they have a unique personality. Maybe they live stream Call of Duty out of their dorm room or whatever. Like, there's a lot of opportunities for these young guys to make money. It's unfortunate that a collective has not been set up yet, but I do want to get to some news that also came out that night. And this is from devilsdigest.com. In light of ASU players tweeting tonight about wanting to secure NIL deals, I did talk to the ASU NIL collective board member who told me that, quote, I understand that our kids are feeling that they're being left behind. Our collective is about 3 weeks away from launching, and basically said administrative hurdles prevented it from launching sooner. Obviously, there's a bunch of legal stuff that you have to get squared away. And then there's also because when people think of NIL collectives, they think of like big boosters contributing. You hear out of Tennessee paying a bunch for a quarterback, and Texas A&M and Miami and all this, and they're just throwing money at it. And ASU doesn't have like a Phil Knight or a T. Boone Pickens or whoever to just dump money into the program. At least not that I know of, and I don't think it's widely that there is just a singular figure like that. But there are a lot of boosters that aren't really investing in it right now because they want change at the top, which I understand. But anyway, one of the topics that Devil's Digest brought up is that there will be an option within the collective that will let just any fan donate. You can just donate like $5 if you want to. So hopefully that the collective comes to fruition. It looks like it will if they're saying 3 weeks. And hopefully it has the option for fans to give a little if they want to.
Yeah, it looks like it will. As far as like what the collective actually is, if I'm understanding this correctly, what happens is this collective is sort of a group of people who, how do they, so they have the money. Are they finding the partners and then pairing them with the student athletes, or how does this work?
Either that or they're just paying them straight from the collective.
To do what though?
Just to be for their just being an ASU football player.
Oh, okay. Now I'm following. So they don't even have to do like an advertisement or be affiliated with any companies or anything. It would
Yeah.
literally just be like, come to ASU, we'll pay you
Here's
out
some
of this
money. Yeah.
collective. So that really is pay for play at that point.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
ASU is totally behind on this. Well, I will say, like, the ones that you talk about, like Texas Tech, there's a story about how they're paying like every player on the team gets a certain amount or whatever. But you only kind of hear about the ones that make news. You don't hear about, I don't know, Wake Forest NAL collective, because it's just you only hear about the ones that make news. It's kind of a self-fulfilling thing. But I hope that there's enough booster, like, I don't want to say confidence, because a lot of the boosters clearly are not confident in the overall direction of the program, not necessarily the players on the field. But
No, and
I
I
just
I
hope that there's
get
enough
that.
support for them this year, and we'll see how this goes. I don't think anyone's transferring before the season starts, but
No, it's a little late for that. So I feel
yeah,
like what we have is what we have, and it's
yeah.
not a terrible roster. There's good pieces for sure. But as far as the trying to secure that funding or that those donations from the larger donors, it does make sense, because it's like, why would you shell out that much money to try to secure the commitment of these top flight guys who probably aren't even going to choose ASU anyway, regardless of the money you throw at them, because any school in the SEC is going to be able to throw more. So it doesn't even matter. But why would you commit that money if these players coming to your program isn't even going to equate to success, because the program doesn't know how to utilize them?
Yeah, no, and that's
yeah.
And so basically,
that makes sense. That thought process makes sense.
Because ASU is never going to be like Texas A&M and just have gobs of oil money or whatever, but they also shouldn't, like, basically, like, in listening to like some of the guys who cover the team. Obviously, we don't cover the team; we just talk about the team. But Cartman had a podcast. Chris Cartman from 247 Sports, covering the Sun Devil Source. Sun Devil Source covering ASU. Basically, he kind of detailed some of the stuff in a recent podcast that said that, yes, ASU is not like the number one in terms of booster like capabilities, but they're also not dead last either, you know?
Right.
And so it shouldn't be this disjointed in terms of these players finding NIL stuff. It should be more structured. And that's where the administration comes in, of not having a full grasp of it, not understanding it, going on freaking local radio and saying that we're not going to be involved with it, which is, I still cannot believe that Ray Anderson said
We're
that.
going
But
to develop players.
I just don't understand why. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that road, but hopefully this draws in some more people who want to support these kids, because really, like, if I understand like not liking the leadership of this program right now, but ultimately you're still probably, like, you still want success for the kids on the team, you know,
Right.
and to help them out. Like, they didn't hire Herm Edwards. They didn't do the cheating scandal. Like,
and I think there's enough people that think that way, for sure. I think that's why this collective is going to be able to launch, is there's enough people who, you know, recognize that it's not the players letting them down necessarily. You know, it's not their fault. They shouldn't have to suffer for, like you said, they shouldn't have to suffer for a lot of the shortcomings of this athletic department. So
right. Yeah, and the thing, I really hope that, I'll just say, if and when the collective launches, that they have a little button or whatever that just normal poor fans like you and I can donate $5 or whatever. Because if ASU is going to have a large collective NIL presence, the fact that you just have so many alumni and so many students that go to the school, having an option of, hey, you can just donate $5, you can donate $10, whatever, and it all just goes into the same pot. If you get enough people to do that, and then there's just more money to work with, obviously. So it should be interesting to see how that develops. I hope I see more guys getting deals, just as I'm scrolling Twitter at work. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I hope that these guys get paid. I mean, these guys are literally, like, it's a little hyperbolic to say, oh, they're risking their life, but they're kind of risking their life playing college football. Like, if you get hit the wrong way, like, it could happen, you know? So they're playing a game that they love, and the guys who are on the team now clearly want to be Sun Devils. You know, they had opportunities to leave. Like, Ladarius Henderson could have left and started at a lot of places. Omar Norman Lott, who he did enter the transfer portal, but he came back. You know, like a lot of these guys aren't just like, wouldn't just go in the transfer portal and only have an option to play at Tulane or New Mexico or whatever. Like, some of these guys have options and they stayed, and they should be rewarded for it by the community, and hopefully that happens. So,
well said, Mark.
Yeah. One thing I did want to touch on, though, is that one of the reasons why the NIL thing has not been so strong here is because, like we've talked about, there's a lot of fans who are or as there's a lot of boosters who are not committing what they otherwise might commit to the program. And there are a certain percentage of fans who are actively rooting against the team to succeed this year. And I'm kind of, I understand where they're coming from, you know, because if ASU goes 2-10 this year, then Herm Edwards will 100% be gone. And more than likely, Ray Anderson will be gone too. And then you get to start over. So I get where that's coming from. But also, even if ASU does do like terribly this year and worse than like people envision, that's not a guarantee that Ray Anderson's going to be fired. You know, it's just not. So that still leaves you with a lot of the same problems that got you to here in the first place. And changing, I mean, look, maybe Ray hires a great coach after Herm Edwards, who knows? But this isn't professional sports, and you don't get a better lottery pick if ASU goes 3-9 this year. You know, all it does is just make recruits to even want to come to the program less. So I understand some fans not rooting for the success of specifically Herm Edwards, Ray Anderson, and Michael Crow when it comes to athletics, but rooting against the team, I just don't think that's really going to, I don't know. I just don't think that that's productive.
No, I agree. I think that's stupid because you're rooting for a team, or you're rooting for this team to lose based on this hypothetical scenario where if they do, the alternative is a brighter future. Which when has this program ever shown you that the grass is greener on the other side? It has never happened. So every season you're going into as an ASU fan, you need to root for for the bounces to finally go their way, whatever it is.
Yeah.
For the curse, whatever they did to have things like what happened in the BYU game happen to them. You just hope that doesn't bite them as hard as it did last year. There's no reason to root for them to lose. It's going to be a miserable season if that's the case. Like you should never. Like you said, you said it best when it's not a tanking scenario. It's not like you lose out and you get a better draft pick, or you can fire your coach and go hire the next big offensive coordinator who is also friends with Sean McVay. It doesn't happen like that. It's not the NFL. So it doesn't make any sense to root for a team to lose where the only benefit of that is possibly hiring a coach who might be somewhat competent and then having to start from the very beginning, which they're going to have to do anyway, probably. I mean,
right.
Like Herm Edwards, if something doesn't come of this investigation, he'll probably retire. Like, how much longer is he even going to coach? There's not a coach in waiting anymore on the staff because of everything that happened with this NCAA investigation. So I think the best case scenario for this season is these guys that we've talked about on this episode that decided to stay, or like Emory Jones transferred in, and all of these guys. I keep blanking on the Wyoming running back's name. He's
Xavier Valladay.
There we go. Thank you. Valladay, all these guys who are solid players transferring in and making the decision to play here. You have to hope that wave of transfers is going to equate to some short-term success before they have to deal with the repercussions of, I mean, if the NCAA still has any power by the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't even know.
Who knows?
But when the final decision will come down and how severe it will even be. So that throws another wrench into it, because a lot of ASU fans are treating the investigation like it's 2010 and the NCAA still wasn't as toothless as they are now, and they actually had real power to bowl bans and all this stuff. And so maybe fighting back against the NCAA will work out. The loss of recruiting is probably made it so that it 100% won't work out. But yeah.
I was just gonna say it's almost like right now in the current landscape of college football, the worst thing, worse than ever, that you can do is root for a team to lose, because it's everything is so uncertain.
Right.
So
Right.
I
Right.
won't be rooting for losses. I'll probably get more than I would like, but I won't be rooting for them. So
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. Like, if you are rooting against ASU football, like if you are outright rooting for them to lose games, you are indirectly rooting for players to play poorly and therefore lower their NFL draft stock and just not have as good of an experience. And like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to root against college kids playing poorly. I'm just not. Like, these guys, like I said earlier, they have to deal with a ton of injuries uh, to play an extremely physical game. And I get being upset with the program. Like, I totally understand that. And I do understand the fear. I think the fear and the reason why some people are straight up just rooting for them to lose is because you don't want to see them go 6-6 and then for everyone to be like, see, we told you so. We're not as bad as everyone thought. And it's like, okay, the goal isn't to be at 6-6 though. Like, what I'm hoping for is that ASU has as good of a season that it can have, and maybe Herm Edwards just walks away anyway because he's 68 years old right now. So it's not
yeah, he
inconceivable he
won't be
just
coaching much.
retires.
Yeah, he won't be coaching much longer, regardless of what happens. So, I agree though. It doesn't make any sense. You're rooting for kids to play poorly. That's a completely different layer to this too. That's equally
And you're
valid. And I mean, I think the one thing that we have to acknowledge is so much of this, like, oh, we're rooting for them to lose. We're rooting for this. It does, at its core, derive from passion. It derives from the
yeah, that
desire
is true.
to want to see this team finally perform the way that people think it finally reach that level people think it can reach, or the level it's been capable of reaching for so long and never has, right? It's that
Yeah.
feeling of like,
Yeah.
here we go again. It's like you have to find some sort of drastic change to try to shake this up again.
Yeah.
So at its core, at the very core of this thought process, I think it derives from the passion of the fan. I just think that's manifesting in the wrong way.
Yeah. And because the reason I bring this up is I saw a few tweets about it, and some of the ASU players responded. And like, if you are gonna root against them, like, I know this sounds weird, but just like, don't tweet about it, because
Yeah. Why would you publicize that?
there was a guy who said I would rather them go 0-12 because if they went 4-8, then Herm would get brought back. Which, like, okay, like,
I don't think that would happen.
and
That's
also,
that's what I'm saying is
yeah,
ASU fans did some of these
and look, it's
takes are
Twitter,
just,
okay, so like
yeah, I don't want to
inherently
generalize. Twitter
crazy,
is the worst of the worst, but
yeah.
some of these takes are just asinine.
No, I know,
4-8 would get a coach fired. How is 4-8 like, yeah,
yeah.
now he's secure. He had such a great year.
Think about, okay, especially considering ASU's schedule too. Like, you play NAU and you look, if they lose to Eastern Michigan, then all bets are off. But they're most likely going to be NAU and Eastern Michigan. And then if for you to go 4-8, that means you win 2 games the entire rest of the year. Like, do you
Yeah.
actually want to watch that? You don't. And I don't know. I just want to know if you're like, when they play Oklahoma State, are you just going to be like, I want them to lose? Like, and I get wanting this football regime to end. I completely understand that. Like, it's
Right, but this regime already has an expiration date. That process doesn't need to be accelerated. Herm
well,
Edwards
the
will
question is, do
retire.
they? That's the thing,
Well,
because
maybe not Ray Anderson, but I'm
right,
saying Herm Edwards will retire.
at some point,
Argue a completely different argument is, what is your level of faith in Ray Anderson? Is probably extremely low. Understandable, but the only benefit that comes from this a terrible 4-8, whatever it would be, season is Herm Edwards being fired. I don't think Ray Anderson is really
yeah,
on the chopping block. I don't think that would be a scenario
yeah,
where
you're right.
Ray Anderson is fired. So if your issue is with Ray Anderson, it could be with Herm Edwards as well. But what I'm saying is the ultimate scenario that you are hoping for by wanting this team to lose is already going to happen in the next couple of years. Herm Edwards is going to retire sooner rather than later, probably.
Yes, in some form, whether he's fired, resigns, retires,
right.
whatever it is. Yeah.
All this does is accelerate that by a year. And there's still talent on this roster. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to just root for them to go out and play sort of the spoiler or the us against the world team that sort of shocks everybody. Like, that's more fun than being like, oh yeah, I want this team to go 0-12 or 4-8, whatever it is, so that we can accelerate this Herm Edwards departure by 1 year. It doesn't make any sense.
And what I would ask people is, think of how much fun it would be for ASU to beat USC in the Coliseum. And I know that probably won't happen. Like, I get it. But the way it could happen is USC's defense was awful last year, like terrible. Jaden Daniels did not play well in the game that ASU beat them last year, and ASU still scored 30 points. So there is a world in which ASU just runs the ball down USC's throat, and maybe they escape with a win in the Coliseum, whatever. But the last time you go to the Coliseum as a Pac-12 game, you beat USC. Like, how freaking awesome would that be, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe they go 6-6, but that would still be like an awesome memory, you know?
That's the stuff you should be rooting for.
Yes.
Things like that, regardless of what the result of this season is. I can guarantee you it's not going to result in a national championship or a Rose Bowl berth. So why not just root for those moments? Right. Like, I just don't understand. Even if I think I'm pretty pessimistic about this program. I think I'm very open about that. But like, I still want to see them do well, and I want to enjoy those moments. I want to be able to see those moments happen. I don't understand why you would root against that.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say this, like, the fact that there are even like a 5% group of fans, whatever, a chunk of fans that are rooting for the team to lose shows you how broken the bond is with like the AD and the fan base. I understand why like it can get to this point, but I just don't understand actually being like sitting down on a Saturday and watching them and be like, okay, like, don't get this third down.
Right. Like rooting for Cal or whoever it is they're playing that week, you know? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like, I get it in the NFL if it's week whatever 17, 16, and the next Joe Burrow or who, like this upcoming draft, and your team's 2 and whatever, you know, and it's like, okay, there's no point in us getting this third win. Like, let's just get to the draft and get whoever that next quarterback is. Like, I understand that, but again, there's some
sort of short-term solution in that scenario. There is no short-term solution in this scenario, so it doesn't make any sense.
Well, and I think, and I think the better way to look at it would be, I want the team to win. Like, I want them to win every game. However, if they don't win games, this can also be good because it will lead to likely some kind of change, you know? I think that's a better, more nuanced way to look at it. It's like, obviously you want them to win, but if they don't, it's also not the worst thing in the world, as opposed to like last year. Last year, you just wanted them to win every game. And that's why it was so frustrating when they blow a halftime lead at Utah. They shoot themselves in the foot a million times in Provo. They get blown out at home by Wazoo, and then they go to Corvallis and lose. Like, they always go to Corvallis and lose, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's why those games were so frustrating last year. But this year, let's just say we get blown out by Utah. Obviously, it's going to suck, but it's not going to be like the end of the world, you know?
Right. The prerequisite for a disappointing season, though, is expectation. When there's no expectation, it's so much more fun. And you're going to find that out as a Seahawks fan this season.
Oh, I know. I'm ready.
Yeah. It's kind of just like the pressure's off. You just get to watch your team suck for a year.
That DK sign, baby. But yeah, so I am getting more and more juiced up for football, man. Like it's funny, like when I was younger, I would definitely be a little bit more juiced up, like ready for the season to start probably around like June. Um, I've gotten like now I'm a little more like I can kind of keep it out of my mind for a bit, but we're getting media days, we're getting fall camps are starting. I'm ready. I am ready to.
Harris is juiced, folks.
That's right. Put me
Your,
in.
your
Put
juiced
me in.
counter. Your juiced counter was at 2. You said it twice. I was waiting for a third one, but you didn't do it.
Yeah. So that will conclude episode 4 of Stump
Yes.
the Bus. We will be back with you again next Thursday. So hope all of you watching on YouTube, listening on the podcast, the millions and millions of you out there that are 100% listening to this. We hope you have a great week, and we will see you again next week. Go
Yes.
Devils.
Real quick before we go, I started a Discord server. I talked about it last week where you can talk about all of this stuff with other ASU
Right.
fans. We're trying to get that started to give people a place to kind of discuss all of this, everything that's going on, because there's obviously so much. So the link to that Discord is going to be below the YouTube video.
Yep, I'll put that
So go
in.
ahead and click on that. We might be able to put it in the podcast description. Don't know. But there will definitely be a link to the Discord on the YouTube video. Click that. Join the Discord. You can chat with us. You can chat with other fans. And yeah, join it. I want to see some people in it.
All right. I love it. Love the enthusiasm. This has been episode 4. We will see y'all again next week. And for the second time, go Devils.
Later.
See ya.